The smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon-spiced sweet potatoes filled my parents' dining room that Thanksgiving evening. Golden light from a chandelier cast warm shadows across the mahogany table, making everything look picture-perfect, like a scene from one of those family holiday commercials where everyone smiles and nobody has secrets. I should have known better. I was sitting between Aunt Beverly and my cousin Nathan, trying to focus on my mashed potatoes while the conversation buzzed around me. My older sister Mia sat at the place of honor beside Mom, her perfectly highlighted blonde hair catching the light just right, her laughter tinkling like expensive crystal every time someone complimented her recent honeymoon photos. Bermuda was absolutely magical, Mia gushed, showing off her phone screen to Uncle Raymond. The pink sand beaches, the turquoise water, honestly, it felt like a dream. Mom beamed at her like she'd personally created the island nation. My daughter deserves only the best, she announced to the table, squeezing MIA's shoulder with pride. I pushed a piece of cranberry sauce around my plate and said nothing. This was how it had always been. Mia shone. I existed in the background. The system worked as long as I didn't make waves. But then Mom stood up. She tapped her wine glass with her dessert spoon, that theatrical gesture she always made when she wanted everyone's attention. The chatter died down. 14 pairs of eyes turned toward her expectantly. I just want to say, Mom began, her voice warm with that particular tone she reserved for important family moments, how grateful I am that we could all celebrate MIA's beautiful wedding together last month. It was everything a mother could dream of. Polite applause rippled around the table. Mia smiled modestly, though her eyes sparkled with satisfaction. Then Mom turned to me. My stomach tightened. And Sabrina, she said, her smile widening in that way that made my skin prickle with warning, your sister's wedding was absolutely spectacular. The flower arrangements, the venue, the orchestra, everything was perfection. She paused for effect, glancing around the table to make sure everyone was listening. So tell us, sweetheart, Mom continued, her tone dripping with false casual interest. When are you going to give us your big day? When's your turn to walk down the aisle? The fork slipped from my fingers. It clattered against my plate with a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the sudden silence. Every face turned toward me, some curious, some pitying, all waiting for me to fumble through some embarrassed explanation about how I was still working on it or waiting for the right time. The old Sabrina would have laughed it off, would have made a self-deprecating joke, would have redirected attention back to Mia where it belonged. But something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the way Mom said your turn, like I was next in line at the deli counter. Maybe it was seeing MIA's barely concealed smirk. Maybe it was the weight of 28 years of being the invisible daughter, finally crushing down on my shoulders all at once. I looked my mother directly in the eyes. I already had mine, I said quietly. The room didn't just go silent. It went still, like someone had pressed pause on reality itself. Mom's smile froze on her face, slowly cracking at the edges. Dad, who had been reaching for the gravy boat, stopped mid-motion. Aunt Beverly's mouth fell open. What? Mom whispered, her wine glass trembling slightly in her hand. My wedding, I repeated, my voice steady now, gaining strength. I already had it. 6 months ago. At Riverside Gardens. You all got invitations. The silence that followed my words felt alive somehow, thick and heavy, pressing against my chest like humidity before a thunderstorm. I could hear the antique wall clock ticking in the hallway. Someone's fork scraped against their plate. The furnace kicked on with a low rumble from the basement. Then everyone started talking at once. You got married. Aunt Beverly gasped, her hand flying to her chest like I'd announced I'd joined a cult. 6 months ago. Nathan sputtered, looking between me and his phone like he needed to Google whether this was possible. Uncle Raymond set down his beer bottle with a heavy thud. Sabrina, that's not funny. I'm not joking, I cut him off. Mom's face had gone through several color changes, confusion, disbelief, and now settling into something that looked almost like anger. Sabrina Marie, what are you talking about? You didn't have a wedding. We would have been there. Would you? The question came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't soften it. Dad finally found his voice. He spoke slowly, carefully, like he was trying to defuse a bomb. Sweetheart, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. We never received any invitation to a wedding. We definitely didn't. Dad. I looked straight at him. I sent invitations. Both email and physical cards. To everyone at this table. Mia laughed. A short, nervous sound that didn't quite land right. Sabrina, come on. You're upset because Mom put you on the spot, but making up stories isn't. I'm not making anything up. My voice cut through the noise like a blade. Everyone stopped talking. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs, but my hands were steady as I reached down beside my chair where I'd placed my leather tote bag. I'd carried it into the house that evening with this exact moment in mind, though part of me had hoped I wouldn't need to use what was inside. That hope died the second Mom asked when my turn was coming. You want to know what happened? I asked the room. You want to know why none of you were at my wedding? Dad's face had gone pale. Sabrina, if you really got married and we somehow missed it. You didn't miss it, I interrupted. Someone made sure you would. Mom set her wine glass down with shaking hands. What are you saying? I pulled a manila folder from my bag and placed it on the table in front of me. The beige paper looked innocent enough, but I knew what was inside would detonate like a grenade. I'm saying that every single person at this table received an invitation to my wedding on April 15th. Physical invitations went out March 20th. Digital invitations were sent March 18th. I opened the folder slowly, deliberately. I'm saying that I waited 3 weeks for responses. I called. I texted. I sent follow-ups. My voice remained calm, clinical almost. And I got nothing. Not a single reply. Not a congratulations. Not even a sorry, can't make it. Aunt Beverly pressed her napkin to her mouth. Honey, I swear I never saw. I know. I looked at her, then at Uncle Raymond, at Nathan, at Dad. I know you didn't see them. Because someone intercepted them. That's impossible, Mia said quickly. Too quickly. Mail doesn't just disappear. If you really sent invitations. I have proof. Those 4 words landed like stones dropping into still water. I pulled out the first document, a printed email confirmation from the invitation company. This is the order receipt for 50 physical invitations. Ordered March 10th. Shipped March 17th. Delivered March 20th. I slid it across the table toward Dad. He picked it up with trembling fingers, his eyes scanning the details. This says, delivered to our address. Yes. But we never. I know. I pulled out the second document. These are the delivery confirmations. Every envelope was successfully delivered. Every single one required a signature. Mom reached for the paper, but her hand froze halfway. Her face had gone completely white. Because there, on every single delivery receipt, 12 separate slips of paper, all dated March 20th, all showing different delivery times throughout that afternoon, was the same signature. The same unmistakable handwriting. MIA's handwriting. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Dad stared at the delivery receipts spread across the tablecloth like accusatory playing cards. His reading glasses had slipped down his nose, and he made no move to adjust them. He just kept looking at one signature, then another, as if hoping they might change if he stared long enough. This is... He couldn't finish the sentence. Mom finally picked up one of the receipts with fingers that shook so badly the paper rattled. Her lips moved silently as she read the signature line. Once. Twice. 3 times. Mia. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. My sister's face had transformed from smugly dismissive to trapped animal panic in the span of 30 seconds. Red blotches crept up her neck. They always did when she was cornered, ever since we were kids and Mom would ask who broke the vase or who ate the last cookie. Those could be anyone's signatures, Mia said, but her voice lacked conviction. Delivery people forge signatures all the time. They just scribble something so they can mark it delivered. That's your handwriting, Dad interrupted. His tone wasn't angry yet. Just confused. Hurt. Like he was watching his worldview crumble in real time. That's exactly how you write your MS. With that little loop at the beginning. Mia swallowed hard. Dad, 12 times, I continued, my voice cutting through her attempt at explanation. 12 different deliveries throughout March 20th. All to Mom and Dad's house. all signed for by someone who happened to perfectly replicate your handwriting 12 separate times. I let that sink in before pulling out another document. But maybe you're right, I said, my tone almost conversational. Maybe that's just a weird coincidence. So let's talk about the digital invitations. Uncle Raymond, who'd been silent this whole time, found his voice. You sent emails too. Better, I replied. I used an invitation service called Event Harbor. It tracks everything. Who received the invitation? Who opened it? What device they used? What IP address? What time? What links they clicked? I pulled out my phone and opened the app, then turned the screen toward the table so everyone could see the dashboard with its neat rows of data and timestamps. 50 digital invitations sent March 18th at 2 p.m., I narrated, scrolling slowly. Within 72 hours, 43 had been opened and viewed. The average view time was 3 minutes and 18 seconds. Aunt Beverly leaned forward, squinting at the screen. It says mine was opened on March 19th. Yes. At your home IP address. You spent 4 minutes looking at it. She pressed her hand to her chest. But I never saw. I don't remember. I know. I gave her a sad smile. Because 30 minutes after you opened it, it was deleted from your inbox. Remotely. How is that possible? Nathan asked. Event Harbor has a feature for wedding coordinators, I explained. If someone has access to the planning account, they can retract invitations, make changes, delete responses, basically manage the entire guest list remotely. I scrolled to a different screen, one showing account access logs. On March 19th, someone logged into my planning account from an unrecognized device. They stayed logged in for 47 minutes. During that time, they accessed every single invitation status, viewed who had opened their emails, and then systematically deleted every invitation from every recipient's inbox. My finger hovered over a line of data that made my throat tight even now, 6 months later. The IP address traces back to Mom and Dad's house. The device ID matches an iPad registered to MIA's iCloud account. The silence that followed felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane, that eerie calm before everything truly falls apart. Mom's wine glass slipped from her fingers. It didn't shatter, just tipped over, spreading dark red liquid across the white tablecloth like blood. Nobody moved to stop it. Mia, Dad said, and this time there was something new in his voice. Something terrible. Tell me this isn't true. My sister's mouth opened and closed. Her husband, Kyle, who'd been sitting frozen beside her this entire time, put his hand on her arm, but she jerked away from him. This is insane, Mia finally said, her voice rising. You're telling me I somehow intercepted physical mail, forged signatures, and hacked into your wedding account? Like I'm some kind of spy. You were house-sitting, I said simply. Everything stopped again. What? Mom looked between us. March 18th through March 23rd, I continued, meeting MIA's eyes. Mom and Dad went to that conference in Austin. Remember? You stayed at their house to water the plants and feed Biscuit. I watched the color drain completely from my sister's face. You had 5 days with complete access to the house. To the mailbox. To Mom's laptop, which you told me you borrowed to finish some work project. I paused. The laptop that stays signed into Mom's email. The email where family members would have been CC'd on the digital invitations. Mia stood up so abruptly her chair scraped backward with a harsh screech against the hardwood floor. Her napkin fell from her lap, drifting to the ground like a white flag nobody was waving. This is ridiculous, she said, but her voice cracked on the last syllable. You're making me sound like some villain in a movie. Like I plotted and schemed to what? Ruin your wedding. You didn't ruin it, I replied quietly. The wedding happened. It was beautiful. Daniel and I got married in a garden ceremony with 20 of our closest friends. The sun was shining. The music was perfect. We said our vows under a white arbor covered in wisteria. I felt my throat tighten but pushed through. The only thing missing was my family. Mom made a small sound, something between a gasp and a sob. Her hand covered her mouth as tears started streaming down her face. Dad sat motionless, staring at the delivery receipts like they were written in a foreign language, he was desperately trying to translate. If you really got married, Carl spoke up carefully, looking at me with something like pity, why didn't you follow up more? Why didn't you call when nobody responded? It was a fair question. One I'd asked myself 1,000 times during those lonely weeks of silence. I did call, I said. I called Mom 4 times. Left 3 voicemails. She finally called me back 2 weeks before the wedding. I looked at Mom. She was crying silently now, mascara running in dark tracks down her cheeks. Do you remember that conversation? I asked her. Mom shook her head helplessly. I can't. You spent 45 minutes telling me about MIA's wedding plans. The venue she'd just booked. The designer she'd hired for her dress. The debate between a band or a DJ. You were so excited. My voice remained steady, but my hands were trembling now. I clasped them together in my lap. I tried 3 times during that call to ask if you'd gotten my invitation. Each time, you talked over me, more details about MIA's color scheme, MIA's photographer, MIA's honeymoon plans. Finally, I just gave up. Oh my God, Aunt Beverly whispered. Oh, Sabrina. I told myself it was fine, I continued. That maybe the invitation system had failed somehow. That maybe I should just try again. But then I saw MIA's Instagram post, the one where she announced her wedding date. I pulled out my phone again and navigated to the saved screenshot. The image showed Mia in a bridal boutique, holding up a champagne glass with the caption, 8 weeks until I marry my best friend. June 4th can't come fast enough. Your wedding was June 4th, Nathan said slowly, understanding dawning on his face. And Sabrina's was April 15th, I confirmed. 7 weeks earlier. Uncle Raymond leaned back in his chair, the pieces clicking into place. So if everyone had known about Sabrina's wedding first. There would have been 2 weddings in the family within 2 months, I finished. And the second one, MIA's, might have felt less special, less important, might have split the family's attention and resources. That's not, I didn't, Mia sputtered, but she couldn't seem to form a complete sentence. Dad finally spoke, his voice rough. Mia, did you know about your sister's wedding? The question hung in the air like smoke. Mia looked around the table desperately, seeking an ally, an escape route, anything. Her eyes landed on Kyle, but he was staring at his plate, his jaw clenched tight. Answer your father, Mom said, her voice stronger now despite the tears. Did you know Sabrina was getting married? MIA's hands fluttered uselessly. I might have. There was maybe a conversation. When? I asked. When did I tell you? She went very still. February 23rd. I answered my own question. We met for coffee at Bluebird Cafe. Remember? You ordered a vanilla latte and spent 20 minutes showing me pictures from your honeymoon venue tour. I pulled out my phone once more. I'd come prepared with every receipt, every screenshot, every piece of evidence I'd been collecting for 6 months. Here's the text I sent you that afternoon. Thanks for coffee. So excited to share my news too. Daniel proposed. We're thinking a small spring wedding. We'll send details soon. I turned the phone toward her. You replied, Congrats. Talk soon. Then you never mentioned it again. MIA's face had gone from red to white to an almost greyish shade. I forgot. You forgot, I repeated flatly. For 2 entire months. Through dozens of family phone calls and group chats. You forgot that your sister was engaged. People forget things, she shot back, some of her old defiance returning. Life gets busy. I was planning my own wedding, and... She stopped abruptly, realizing what she'd just admitted. There it is, I said softly. You were planning your own wedding. And you couldn't handle anything taking attention away from that. This is insane, Mia tried again, but the fight was draining from her voice. You're making me sound like some narcissistic monster who can't stand her sister being happy. I'm not making you sound like anything, I interrupted. I'm just presenting facts. You knew about my wedding. You had access to my parents' house during the exact window when invitations were delivered. You had the password to Mom's laptop where family emails could be accessed. And digital invitations were deleted from an iPad registered to your name. I leaned forward slightly. So tell me, Mia, if you didn't intercept those invitations, who did? The question echoed in the dining room like a judge's gavel striking a wooden block. Final. Irrevocable. Demanding an answer that everyone already knew, but nobody wanted to speak aloud. Mia's mouth opened, then closed. Her hands gripped the edge of the table so hard her knuckles went white. For the first time in our entire lives, I watched my sister, the golden child, the favorite, the one who always landed on her feet, completely crumble. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she whispered. Mom's sharp intake of breath cut through the room. What? Dad's voice was barely audible. Mia closed her eyes. When she opened them again, tears were streaming down her face, but they weren't the pretty, delicate tears she usually produced when she wanted sympathy. These were messy, desperate, ugly tears. I didn't mean to hurt anyone, she said, the words tumbling out in a rush. I saw the invitation when I was checking the mail for Mom and Dad, and I panicked. You panicked, I repeated, my voice hollow. Yes. Mia's hands flew up. Because I just booked my venue, and I was so excited, and then suddenly you were getting married first, and everyone would make comparisons, and your wedding would be this intimate, meaningful thing, and mine would just look like I was trying too hard or something. Aunt Beverly looked like she might be sick. So you hid your sister's wedding invitations. I didn't think it through. Mia insisted. I saw that first envelope, and I took it. I told myself I'd figure out what to do later. Maybe talk to Sabrina. Maybe convince her to postpone or just let me think my family didn't care enough to respond, I finished coldly. Mia flinched like I'd slapped her. Then the other invitations kept coming, she continued, her voice breaking. More and more of them. And I'd already hidden the first one, so I had to hide the rest, and then I remembered Mom's laptop was logged into her email, and I could see the digital invitations there too, and You deleted them, Carl said, his voice strange and distant. He was staring at his wife like he'd never seen her before. You deleted your sister's wedding invitations and let her think nobody cared. It wasn't like that. Mia sobbed. I was going to tell everyone. I was going to make it right. But then time kept passing, and it got harder and harder, and by the time April came around, I thought maybe. Maybe what? Mom demanded, standing up from her chair. Her tears had stopped. Now she just looked furious. Maybe you could just pretend your sister didn't have a wedding? Maybe you could let her stand there alone on the most important day of her life, thinking her family abandoned her. I thought she'd postpone. Mia cried. When nobody responded, I thought she'd realize something was wrong and postpone the date, and then we could all go to both weddings, and everything would work out. But I didn't postpone, I said quietly, because I thought you were all just too busy with your lives to care about mine. I thought I was so forgettable that my own family couldn't be bothered to RSVP. The words landed like blows. I watched them hit my mother, my father, saw the guilt and horror bloom across their faces. Sabrina, Dad said hoarsely, if we had known. You should have known, I interrupted, and for the first time, my voice shook with real anger. You should have asked why I wasn't talking about my wedding. You should have wondered why I got quiet when Mia was showing off her venue photos. You should have noticed. I had to stop. Had to breathe. Had to fight back the tears that threatened to spill over. But you didn't notice, I continued, quieter now. Because you never do. Mia is the sun, and I'm supposed to be grateful just to orbit around her, and when I finally did something for myself, something important, she couldn't even let me have that. Mia was sobbing openly now, her face buried in her hands. Kyle had moved away from her, putting physical distance between them like her confession was contagious. I'm sorry, Mia gasped between sobs. I'm so sorry, I never meant. Yes, you did, I said simply. You meant every bit of it. You just didn't mean to get caught. Uncle Raymond cleared his throat uncomfortably. Maybe we should. This is a family matter. We should probably. No, Mom said sharply. She hadn't taken her eyes off Mia. Everyone should stay. Everyone should hear this. Because if my daughter did something this unforgivable, then we all need to witness the consequences. I'd never heard my mother's voice so cold. Not even when I was 16 and came home 2 hours past curfew. Not even when I announced I was moving across the state for college, instead of staying local like Mia had. This was different. This was betrayal at a level none of us had ever navigated. How did the wedding happen without us? Aunt Beverly asked quietly, looking at me with heartbroken eyes. How did you? Were you all alone? Daniel's family was there, I said. His parents, his sister, his grandparents. They were wonderful. They cried during the ceremony and danced at the reception and told me I looked beautiful. My voice cracked. His mom helped me get ready. His sister held my bouquet during the vows. His dad gave a toast about how lucky Daniel was to find someone like me. I looked around the table at my own family, at their shocked, guilty, devastated faces. I had 20 people at my wedding who loved me enough to show up, I said. The only thing I didn't have was the family I was born into. And I spent months thinking that was my fault. That I wasn't worth showing up for. Mom sank back into her chair like someone had cut her strings. Her hand reached out blindly for Dad's, and when their fingers connected, they gripped each other with the desperation of people trying to stay afloat in a storm. Sabrina, Dad said, his voice cracking on my name, I don't even know what to say. How do we? He stopped, shaking his head helplessly. How do we fix this? I don't know if you can, I said honestly. The truth of those words seemed to physically hurt him. His face crumpled, aging 10 years in an instant. Nathan, who'd been sitting frozen throughout the entire confrontation, finally spoke up. I remember now. I remember getting an email notification about an event invitation. But when I went to check it, there was nothing there. I figured it was spam or a glitch. Me too, Aunt Beverly whispered. I saw something flash on my phone, but when I looked, nothing. I thought I was going crazy. You weren't crazy, I said. You were just erased. All of you. Systematically and deliberately. I pulled out one more document, the last piece of evidence I'd brought. This one was different from the others. This was a photo album, small and leather-bound, the kind you'd find at a craft store. After the wedding, I said, my hands trembling as I opened it, I had these printed. I wanted to have something physical. Something real. Proof that it happened, even if nobody I was related to saw it. I laid the album on the table and flipped to the first page. The photo showed me in my wedding dress, a simple ivory gown with lace sleeves, nothing extravagant, but it had made me feel beautiful. I was standing in a garden with wisteria hanging overhead, and I was laughing at something Daniel had just said. The joy on my face was so pure it almost hurt to look at. Mom let out a sound like she'd been punched. I turned the page. Daniel and me exchanging rings. Another turn. Our first kiss as a married couple, with friends cheering in the background. Another. Dancing with Daniel's father, both of us grinning. Another. Cutting the cake, a small 2-tier vanilla cake with fresh flowers.